Welcome to another Cloud Native Chronicles, and this time a special one from KubeCon 2026. And this is a home game for us at ITQ, because this time it's in Amsterdam. And I'm here with my good friend Steve Wade. And maybe you would like to introduce yourself quickly.
Sure, yeah. My name's Steve Wade. I'm founder of Platform Fix. Companies bring me in when their budget is millions and millions over the top, and also their roadmap is about 18 months behind. So really the methodology and practices that I preach is around simplification of leaner platforms, bringing people to business value faster.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And the contradicting thing is when you go here at KubeCon, you see so much new stuff, new toys for developers to play with, and then actually when you start using it, it might be a bit too much or a little bit too much over the top with these kind of things.
Yeah, so I think the problem that we have nowadays is the CNCF landscape. If you need to be able to get to it, right, you have to zoom out to be able to see all of the projects, which is like a good and a bad thing. But also it means that people are collecting these tools like Pokemon cards.
Yep.
Right, and actually really there's a small subset of these tools that you actually need, because what we're building a platform for is to be able to bring business value. We're not building a platform for platform's sake and technology's sake, right? Yep. We're doing it to bring business value. So if we're spending too much time maintaining and building the platform and not onboarding new product teams, then we're not really servicing the business.
Exactly, and I think that's the right thing for us as well, because our customers are the developers, right? And if we're trying to deliver value, we're delivering value for our customers, so the developers. And if we start off building like all kinds of nice fancy tools that we like, what are we helping them for, right? I mean, how are we accelerating or giving them value to quickly deploy or do other stuff?
Yes, exactly. And we have user experience when it comes to design. I think we're still in this process of getting better user experience when it comes to platform design and how we can improve developer experience across the life cycle of them leveraging the platform. And I think what ends up happening nowadays is we glue all of these constituent pieces together and we have this incredible platform which is unusable by the users. But from the outside, it looks really, really impressive because it's got all of the buzzwordy tools in there that we require, which I will not name.
Well, I think the most interesting thing is that I saw once is, what do you consider the GUI of a platform, right? And I think a lot of people tend to think like a web interface or something like that, but how do you look at that?
I think there isn't a UI. The UI should be Git. So we can use the Git commits, like it's fully auditable, right? We can run CI to make sure that we're not doing anything silly. And then our user interfaces, we drive all changes through Git, which means that Git gets reconciled. And also we start to see the cluster as a bit more ephemeral, right? Yep. So we should be able to stand up a new cluster, reconcile it with 1 or X Git repositories, and we are back to where we are. Obviously there's the data aspect, but let's just kind of gloss over that for a minute.
Well, for me, one thing that comes to mind is I had a talk today with a customer, and they were looking into Backstage, and they promote themselves as an IDP. And to be honest, I'm not a big fan of Backstage because it constrains you and it really removes your usability of your platform. You're constraining yourself to their APIs and other stuff.
Yes, yeah, I've had the pleasure of removing Backstage from a couple of companies because you end up having Backstage engineers. Right? Yeah. You need engineers to be able to manage Backstage because the platform engineers are busy servicing the platform and actual customers. Yeah. And then really you're just a slave to another tool, right? So it's like you could have all of these trodden paths, right? But actually people know where they're going 9 times out of 10, right? There's a reason why GitHub created GitHub repository templates. It's so you can templatize the repository and then you can stand up another one. So really, we don't need this other layer, right? If your development, I will call it a development platform loosely, not an IDP. If it's got standards and protocols and patterns and paradigms around it, you really don't need this other layer or user interface on top to be able to drive that.
Yeah. And for me, this goes against, and I think this is maybe the trap that people can fall into. It's like, yeah, but this is a GUI. I can click and do stuff into it. But I think the perspective of what a platform is, software development-wise, it's not the same. It's like normally a software has a GUI and that's a web interface, but a platform is not software development in that kind of way. So it's the front end, the back end, and the database parts, they're different.
I agree. Right, a platform, if we took it from a housing perspective, the platform is really the foundations, right? The building blocks in which you can build things on, right? And where, if you want, a massive bathroom and a tiny bedroom, that's up to you. But we'll provide you the foundation so you can do either. But the whole point is that we standardize the way that these things are done, right? So we will allow you to be able to construct and deploy as many applications and workloads as you wish. The way I talk to customers about it is really you're like a hotel supervisor, right? We're a receptionist, but we're also a builder, we're also a plumber, right? And the platform engineering team's job is to be able to provide these features.
And we're a support team.
Yes, exactly. We are a cost center at the end of the day. We're not making the company money, right? We're actually burning money. The ones that are making money are the developers that are building features for customers. So really, how can we reduce the complexity and the overall cost of our cost center and speed the ones up that are actually making the business money to be as efficient as we possibly can?
And for me, I know you for a while now, but for me, the stuff that you post on LinkedIn is very inspirational because I really preach these kind of things as well. And I think it's always a good idea to give an example of what kind of effect these things have. So can you tell us maybe in general what you've done and what kind of effect that have on the customer that you...
So I can talk about one specifically. There's a customer that we have, they're running 40,000 clusters. So 40,000, that's not a slip. That's not a slip of the tongue either. That's the amount. And they had their own homegrown tooling to be able to do such a thing. And then the big thing that we did is we essentially simplified that implementation, re-architected it, moved them to a number of Kubernetes clusters that still provide the same level of isolation in terms of what the user gets, but we reduced the complexity in terms of the overall running platform cost. And we saved the company around £500,000 a year.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Across that project. So really it's like, what outcome are we giving? What value are we providing to the organization? So from an outside user's perspective, they still see the same thing. But kind of behind the covers, it's a much more streamlined, much more easy to understand way of doing things. Reason behind that is because 3 people knew how this thing worked. 2 left. So now it's 1 person knows how this thing works.
That's very dangerous.
And then we're in a situation whereby that person goes on holiday. Now what? That was probably the best project that I've worked on recently that I can actually talk about.
I think that's very satisfying, or for at least for me, that would be very satisfying to actually start doing this kind of work and helping them out and actually show them like, okay, can we do it like this, or can we reduce this? And I think you also removed service meshes from clusters and other stuff, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that is correct. And I think that it's the problem with the Cloud Native Compute Foundation's landscape is, the great thing is that any tool can join within reason. All right, and I like the fact that they have this structure in terms of how you get graduated. But the problem is people jump on these tools too quickly and don't think about what they're doing, right? So a prime example is the service mesh. You deploy one of these service meshes, they're completely open source. But there's a thing that I call the new tool tax, which is the tax of the tool that no one's thinking about, such as the amount of time that it takes to train you as a platform engineer up on said tool. So how much does that cost your organization? Then there's the maintenance of this solution. So how do you do rolling upgrades of a service mesh without taking any downtime? Or how do you roll certificates without taking any downtime? Then there's how do you tell and help the engineers that are deploying workloads understand what the mesh is doing? Because by the way, the sidecar is in their app. So they also need to know what's going on. It's not just like smoke and mirrors and black magic.
I think that's a very big overhead as well. There was when I started off looking into service meshes, spoiler alert, I avoided them and I never implemented one of them. But in those days, Istio, for example, you had to run sidecars next to all of your pods, and the overhead that it generated inside of the cluster and the amount of extra CPUs and memory that you had to use for this kind of stuff was it went up drastically. So we try to avoid this.
Yeah, and I'm not bashing on service mesh, right? It has its place.
Yeah.
But it has its place when you have the skill set and understanding of how the tool works, not just doing it because it's cool or because I can get a nice dashboard and I can see certain features and functionality. Like, yeah, it's super powerful. You can do a load of different things, right? But I kind of talk to customers about it. It's like me putting you into a spacecraft and then telling you to fly the spaceship.
Yeah.
And no one knows what any of the dials or any of the knobs actually mean. But it looks really cool because, guys, we're about to launch a spaceship.
Yeah, and it still can feel, and it can still cost a
Yes,
lot of money to.
of course.
Yeah, for me, I think building a platform is more people work. To be honest, if you look at it, but the other part is also, if you're building this, then you have to keep in mind that you have to add value to it. So if we look at it from that perspective, you shouldn't look at the new shiny stuff, but you have to just be constantly in contact with the people that you're actually working for.
Yeah, it's how quickly can we build and maintain business value to this organization, right? And how quickly can someone deploy and construct a new microservice and get it shipped all the way to production securely, with compliance, with limited risk, and as fast as they possibly can, right? And if we can enable that everyone's winning, right?
Yeah.
If we're not, then everyone is actually losing, and we're all part of the same team. So security loses out, networking loses out, the application team loses out. But I think, back to your point, all right, and we talked about this before when I met last time, I remember, which is like, the tech is the easy part.
Yeah.
Like, the hardest part is the people. So you actually have to bring these people together. So one of the things that we do when we first start a project is we build something called a KET, which is not a KEP for anybody listening, it's a KET, Kubernetes Enablement Team. And the idea behind that is that you build a team that will drive Kubernetes adoption forward. And then it's made up of a number of different people in the organization. And one, as a spoiler, is one of them is an HR representative. And everyone goes, why do you say HR?
Interesting.
Well, you need to hire people, right?
Yeah.
So what's the longest, most painful, boring exercise that you do is interviewing the wrong people.
True.
So how they need to know what's going on and why you're doing it and have an understanding. So one of the things that I do is I train HR on what Kubernetes is. Not at the level that an engineer needs to know, but enough so that they can question the potential interviewee of what is Kubernetes, and they know the right answer.
I will definitely stick with that KEP idea. I like the term.
Yeah, KEP, Kubernetes Enablement Team.
How can people get a hold of you?
So yeah, if anyone wants to get a hold of me, I run something called the Simplicity Test. It's completely free. It takes 8 minutes to do. Reach out to me, steve@platformfix.com, or hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to send it to you. I'm more than happy to collaborate.
Okay, perfect. Well, there you have it, guys. Here with maybe a controversial topic, instead of chasing all of the shiny stuff that's around us here at the KubeCon, maybe it's sometimes a good point to settle down, reflect on what you actually need and where you need to go and how you can help your development team. This has been another Cloud Native Chronicles.